Hi, and welcome to Cooking Fast and Eating Light. I am cooking with recipes that have 5 ingredients or less. This one has a little bit more, but because it is my mission to break down the barrier to healthy eating. My name is Judy Matuski. I am a registered dietitian and I am a culinary nutritionist with Athens Nutrition. So welcome to all of you joining live today, and certainly to anyone who's going to be watching this on the replay. Well, I'm excited. I feel like I'm always excited, but I'm excited about this recipe today because we are going to be making a really velvety, creamy cheese sauce that doesn't have any cheese, which I think sort of defies all logic. It looks like cheese sauce and it tastes like cheese sauce, but there's no cheese in it. And the reason for that, it's not that we're sort of villainizing dairy. Dairy is fine and we can certainly include it into our healthy eating plan. But we all tend to eat probably more cheese than we should. So this is a nice alternative, a way of moving away from animal-based cheese using dairy and moving into this world of plant-based. We all can benefit from more plants in our diet. That is absolutely for sure. So if this is one way that might work for you, fantastic, because this is a purely plant-based cheese sauce. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about the ingredients because some of these might be a little bit different and unusual, so I want to make sure that you're, kind of familiar with where to find them and, what they look like. So let's just talk about it. But I do want to also mention that just to get a jump start, this is a very fast recipe, but I wanted to do a few things ahead of time just so that we can get through this pretty quickly. So the ingredients really are a bunch of different vegetables. I have them here on the on my cutting board. We're using just like a white or yellow potato. We're using some cut up carrots, and we're going to use about 1/4 of an onion. So what I did before the video came on live, I peeled the potatoes and just kind of cubed them up a little bit. I chopped up the carrots and the onion, and I put that in just a pot, just into a pot, covered with water, and I cooked it for about 15 minutes just to get the vegetables soft. I just didn't want to take that time up to do that while we're live. So that's already been done, and I have them right here. So the recipe calls for about 2 medium potatoes. Again, the amount of the ingredients doesn't matter that much. I didn't have the regular potatoes, but I had a bunch of these little ones, which was sort of a pain because I had to peel each one of them. But I used them because I had them and I wanted to use them up. So I have it's probably about a cup of potatoes, give or take. It was 1 large carrot, which was more than 1/2 of a cup, I think, once I chopped it. And it was, 1/4 of, here's the half of that onion, but here's the 1/4 of the onion that I used. It can be a little bit more, it can be a little bit less. But basically you're just cooking them to get them really pretty fork tender because we're going to put them in the blender. All right, so that step was done ahead of time. Pretty easy, no fuss, simple. The only thing you have to remember, and this is in the recipe, when you cook these vegetables ahead of time, make sure before you drain them that you're going to save about 1.5 cups of the liquid of the water that they cooked in, because we're going to need that to help to thin the sauce. So make sure you save some of that, and then you can drain those vegetables and they'll be ready to go. All right, so that's done ahead of time. Let's talk about 2 other ingredients that are in here. I'm using raw cashews. Now this is key to this sauce. So you'll notice that when you're maybe looking at some recipes that are all plant-based, maybe vegan-oriented, a lot of times raw cashews are used in these recipes to give the sauce a real good creaminess, right? So you don't want them roasted, you don't want them salted, you really want them in this like sort of white form, that they're raw. I like to buy them in bulk because it's certainly a lot cheaper than to buy them prepackaged if you can. So that's one ingredient that's important that you definitely need to pick up and have. Now what I did with them, this is just sort of one step that you kind of have to do ahead of time. Super easy, but because we're going to use these walnuts to create this creamy sauce, it's better to hydrate them in some water. So it doesn't take long. If you cover them up with some water, maybe an hour before you're going to use them, you can do it overnight. The longer they sit in the water, just the softer they get, and they break down and they get a little bit more creamy and a little bit smoother when you're putting them in the blender. I'm using a pretty high powerful blender. So this is a Vitamix. If you have a Vitamix, that's great, because you wouldn't even have to soak the cashews then, because this is so powerful. It will cream them up and turn them into sort of cashew butter without them being soaked. But if your blender isn't quite as powerful, definitely you're going to want to soak them at least an hour. If you put them in boiling water, they probably only have to soak for 30 minutes, but they need to soak just a little bit, just so that they get a little bit soft. So we have, those are the cashews. They're there really for, again, texture, but also for some protein, for some healthy fat in this, which is sort of the big difference between this type of a cheese sauce that's plant-based versus a regular cheese sauce. We're really changing out the fat profile. So in a regular cheese sauce, it's going to certainly be higher in saturated fats. But in this one, it's very low in saturated fat, and the fat that we're putting in here is a very healthy plant-oriented fat. Okay, so that's really important. The other ingredient that we're using is nutritional yeast. So, and again, I apologize, sometimes the lighting, it's hard to see these labels, but nutritional yeast, if you're not familiar, is a very important sort of seasoning within sort of that all plant-based eating plan, whether it's vegan or vegetarian, for a couple of reasons. One is that it is, and it really smells a lot like Parmesan cheese, and that's what it's used for. Nutritional yeast is regular yeast that has been pasteurized, so you can't use it to make bread with. It's been pasteurized, and most of them will add B vitamins to it, and that's what's really important about the nutritional yeast. Not all do. So if you are vegan and you're trying to rely on the nutritional yeast for your B12, make sure that the B12 has been added, because it's not high in B12 naturally. It has to be added. Not all nutritional yeast does. So I have a couple of brands that I wanted to share with you, because if you've not used this before, you might not be sure where to get it. So we have, and if any of you that live locally, there's a Mom's Market, Head Nut too, if you're in the area. They're gonna sell it in bulk, and I would suggest that, again, just like your cashews, that's the way to get it. So much more economical, and you can buy what you need. So I picked this up at Mom's Market, and that was easy. You can also buy the nutritional yeast. Most supermarkets will carry it in this Bragg's, B-R-A-G-G, that's the brand. If you can see that, hopefully you can. That's easy to find in most supermarkets, so there you go, and it is fortified with B12. And you can, and Trader Joe's has it. I mean, you really can find it most places. It's just you probably haven't really been looking for it, because it's not something you probably would use. But it's used a lot, again, in vegetarian or vegan-based recipes, because someone who is eating no animal proteins at all, your B12 is at risk, because you're not going to get that, because that really is an animal-based vitamin. All right, so that's what and that is key. So the cashews and the nutritional yeast are key to this recipe, because the cashews give it its texture, and the nutritional yeast is going to give it that cheesy flavor. So nutritional yeast can be used like on top of pasta. It's great on popcorn. Any way you would use Parmesan cheese is how you would use nutritional yeast. I know it might sound a little bit kind of odd, but it does taste really good. So I think you'll like that. All right, so let's start to put this together, because it's very fast. And again, I'm all about fast and easy, right? So we are going to just take the vegetables that I already had cooked up, which are those potatoes, the carrots, the onion, and then just in water. You could do it in a vegetable broth. It would probably add even more flavor if you want to do that. I just did it in water. All right, so they're going to go in, and then we're going to now just add it's a half of a cup of these soaked cashews. So let me just grab that. We'll throw those in. So that, again, the nice part about this recipe is that everything goes into one blender. All right? Other than the fact that you have to kind of cook those vegetables ahead of time, everything's going to go into the blender. You're probably not going to be able to do this in a food processor. I just don't think you're going to get that creamy smoothness that we really need. So a blender is really the way to go. All right, so that's in. Now, in the seasoning component, so there are 5 main ingredients in the main part of this recipe. Then there's some extra seasonings that help to bring the flavor together and sort of get it to resemble sort of cheese. In here, it's just a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a little bit of kosher salt, and I think that's it. So there's 3 little additions here as far as seasonings go. So that's going to go in. All right, so I already measured these out. Let me just stick in a little bit to the bottom. All right, and then we're going to add this quarter cup of nutritional yeast. All right, so any brand that you have. All right, so let's throw that in. Now we're going to have to add, you know, I would say maybe you're going to need about a cup of this. I'm not going to put it all in because I want to just test it, and then I'll add more if we need it. I just don't want it to have it get too thin. All right, so it's going to go in the blender. Let me get my top one here. And again, I can't turn the volume down, so it's going to be loud, and apologize for that. So let me just get it on, and I'll keep it on variable, and I'll see if I can get it going without it. I'm going to just put it down, push it down here a little bit more. I'm going to definitely need a little bit more liquid. And this is the thing with this recipe. You can make it as, you know, kind of as thin or as thick as you want, depending on how you're going to use it. This would make a great base for like a nacho dip. Like if you were going to do this and you add some salsa and some jalapeno peppers or whatever, you might want it a little thicker, so you just don't add as much of the cooking water. I'm going to just thin it down a little bit more, not too much, but so far it looks like I probably used about a cup of the cooking broth. All right, and now let me get this going again. Let this go a little bit longer, but for the sake of everybody's ears, I'm not going to do that. So let me just show you the thickness. This was with a cup of that cooking water. All right. So if you can see, it is nice and thick. It is literally like a velvety. It's sort of like, just a velvety kind of cheese sauce. Like I'm trying to think of Velveeta. Like, when you melt Velveeta, only that's so processed. This is not, right? And it really does smell. It smells like a cheese sauce, and that's really coming from the nutritional yeast. So what we'll do with this, and what I want to show you is that my spoon is falling down there. We're going to add this now over pasta. All right, so but I do want to talk about pasta real quick, so bear with me. Normally I would use like a whole wheat pasta because I really just love to pick up any extra nutrients and fiber whenever I can. There's nothing wrong with regular pasta either, so that's fine. But if you can do the whole wheat, great. Even better, because this is a plant-based meal, and we're trying to make sure we're getting enough protein out of this meal. So one way to do that is to use these pastas, and I'm going to put pasta in parentheses, because I feel like when you go to eat something like this Tolerant brand chickpea pasta, I cooked up their red lentil pasta. Banza, made from chickpeas, is a pretty popular one. That's great. But when you're using these plant-based, these legume-based or bean-based pastas, definitely you're not going to go into it thinking that it's going to taste like regular pasta. It definitely has a little different flavor. It's going to have a different texture. I like to kind of think of it as if I'm eating, some beans with whatever it is I'm eating. So it's pasta in the shape of pasta. It does resemble it. It has some texture, it certainly. But it's, I think you have to kind of have a little open mind. There are, like whole wheat pasta, the brands vary. Some are awful and some are really good. The Tolerant brand is probably one of my favorites. You can find this almost in any supermarket. I think the Banza brand is pretty good. If you want to sort of dip your toe into more lentil-based type pastas, you could try the Barilla ProteinPLUS. This one is great because it really tastes like regular pasta. It's not gluten-free because it does use flour, whole grain flour, in addition to some bean and lentil flours that are mixed in with it. So this might be a good gateway into the lentil or bean-based pastas, and you can find this, again, almost any supermarket. What I love about these pastas, these lentil or bean-based pastas, is that their protein content is twice as high as even whole grain, whole wheat pasta. So regular pasta has some couple of grams of protein. Whole wheat pasta is going to get you up there to maybe 7 or 8 grams of protein per serving. These are going to get you up to 14 grams of protein or more. And one of the goals when you're eating more plant-based is that you're trying to create or recreate, you know, enough protein within that meal so there's satiety and you're really getting the nutrients you need. So when you're doing a cheese sauce like this and you're putting it over, and let's just do it right now. I cooked up the red lentil tolerant pasta. All right, so I already just cooked that up, took about 7 minutes. And let's just put some of that in a bowl. All right, and it's like a serving, I mean, you want to have certainly enough. All right, and then we're going to take the cheese sauce and just put some on top. I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, certainly a couple of nice big tablespoons for sure. And then what I would also do with this, you could finish it with some fresh herbs, which would be fantastic. But I would just do a little shake of the nutritional yeast on top, because that's sort of just like adding Parmesan cheese. But here you have it. So it's really like, you know, really is a really easy, simple way to make a nice little creamy. It's like, you know, if this is macaroni, we call it mac and cheese, but isn't that, it's really nice and creamy. It's really good. I would eat this on camera, but I feel like I would just make a mess. I'm gonna have it for lunch. But, okay, so this, when you add the, I did get a lot of questions when I did the zucchini pasta about protein. Most of us get plenty of protein in our diet. It's just overplayed. It's rare for us to not get enough protein, but it's important because it does help with satiety. So that sort of helps with weight loss or weight maintenance. So this is going to have about 24 grams of protein. When you have the lentil-based pasta and you have the cheese sauce, it's going to have the nutritional yeast, which is higher in protein, as well as the cashews. So this is really a solid meal without any animal protein at all. So no worries about not getting enough protein. I would pair this, if I was serving this, I would serve this with a nice big salad. I would serve this with some sauteed greens or maybe some broccoli. This cheese sauce is great spooned over steamed vegetables, so over cauliflower or broccoli. It's a great way maybe to get kids to eat their vegetables. You can use it as a dip. It is pretty versatile. It's great on nachos too. And I swear, I think if you serve this to anyone, they would be hard pressed to know that there's no cheese in here. All right. So if you have questions, as I said, with the way this is set up, I can't really answer questions and see them as they come in, but I'll be more than happy to answer them once the video is over. So please send them in. Happy to answer them. Also, next week, I'll be getting a lot of questions about doing some things with fish. And I get it, because I feel like fish is sometimes a little bit scary. Some people are not sure exactly what types of fish to buy and how to prepare, and they don't want to overcook it, and they don't want their house to smell, and all those things. So we're going to do a really fun fish meal next week that I think you're going to love. All right, check us out on athensnutrition.com. As always, we've got a lot of great things coming up. We have a fantastic culinary course that we're launching in October, so keep your eyes out for that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Eat well. Stay healthy. All right, take care. Bye-bye.